Welcome back to Financial Clarity for Doctors, everyone. This is Rachelle Vanderzanden here with Corey Janoff.
I'm here too.
Yep. Today, we wanted to talk a little bit about something called dollar cost averaging, or kind of the idea of should we invest money all at once the second we get it and we know we want to invest it, or should we kind of spread out our investments a little bit, which is what dollar cost averaging is. We talk a lot about how we don't want to time the market and we don't really know where we're at in the market cycle at any given time. So that shouldn't be something that we try to do. But both dollar cost averaging and just putting your money in as soon as you have it are both ways to not try to time the market. And there's some pros and cons to both strategies. So we're just going to walk through that a little bit and kind of explain first what dollar cost averaging is and what the purpose of it is. And then also some pros and cons of both strategies and why we recommend them in different scenarios. Want to get us started, Corey?
Let's get us started. So, first off, textbook definition. What is dollar cost averaging? It is simply investing a set amount in equal installments over a defined period of time, um, or indefinitely, I suppose. So it's like, hey, every paycheck, I'm investing 10% of my paycheck. No ifs, ands, or buts. 10% is going into my 401k or brokerage account or combination of the two, however you want to dice it up. Every January on the first business day of the year, January 2nd, unless it's a weekend, I'm putting money in to fund my backdoor Roth IRA, like, annually doing that. Or I guess you could do it monthly, whatever you want to do. It's equal installments on set intervals. There's no thinking involved. There's no looking at prices to see is now optimal. It's just, I'm going to do it on this set date, this set amount, autopilot. Very simple. It's a great way to automate investing. And over time, it's going to reduce your average cost per unit. For example, let's say we go to the grocery store and apples cost $1 each, and you have $10 that you want to spend on apples. Well, if they're $1 each, you're going to buy 10 apples. Now, if there's a sale, 2 for 1, apples are now 50 cents each. With your $10, you buy 20 apples. And next month you go in, there's a shortage of apples. They're now $2 a piece. Well, with your $10, you're buying 5 apples. So, when prices are expensive, you buy less units. When prices are more favorable, you buy more units, but you're putting the same dollar amount in every single time. So it forces you to buy more when prices are low and, not overbuy when prices are high. So simple as that. Again, you're not putting thought into how much should I do? Should I do more this month, less this month? Like, what's the price? Should I buy this thing? Should I wait
Do
for
I think
prices to
stock
come
is going to
down?
go up? Do I think it's going to come
Yeah.
down? Like,
Nope, you're just a robot. I'm putting this much in every single month.
or
And
you have a robot literally do it for you.
yeah, you,
You
you
know?
set it on auto purchase and the computer program does it for you. You don't even have to place the trades yourself. So, that's what dollar cost averaging is. Anything else to add there?
Nope. Yeah, I think, if you have $100,000 and they want to do like, let's do a set amount. It's like, okay, we're going to do $10,000 a month for 10 months or $10,000 a week for 10 weeks or whatever it is. It's just like you kind of decide on a time frame and you spread it out. Yeah,
Yep,
it
yep.
can be helpful. I think it's important to think about like where the money came from. Was it invested previously? If it was already invested, there's not really a reason to like pull money out of the market and like kind of leave it sitting on the sidelines and then reinvest it. Like that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about cash. Like how do we invest cash? So if you have money that was already reinvested or like already invested, it's a good idea to just reinvest it immediately. We don't want to sit on the sidelines. And then if it's from cash, like that's where you can kind of decide. And honestly, like it's important to be somewhat consistent with the decisions that you're making because if you're going back and forth, realistically, you are trying to time the market a little bit. If you're not using the same strategy all the time, it's like you're making a decision on a case by case basis about what you want to do with individual chunks of money. So stick with it. Try
For
to remove
sure.
emotion from that decision making equation just by knowing, like, hey, this is the strategy that I've decided I want to use.
Yep, yep. And there's a
Yep.
saying in the world of finance, time in the market is better than timing the market. And it's so true. And this just comes down to statistics. Statistically speaking, the markets go up more often than not. Therefore, the more time you have invested, the more likely you'll see growth versus trying to time the market. And, there's all sorts of charts and graphs. And the fun thing about numbers and statistics, it's very easy to I don't know if manipulate the right word, but maybe cherry pick the data points to prove your point, either one way or the other. But if you look at any graph over a long period of time of, hey, just putting money in, letting it run, and leaving it invested through the ups and downs versus like, hey, I'm going to buy at every low point each year, or I'm going to buy at every high point each year. Trying to put some thought into the equation. If you had that crystal ball that showed those data points, like just staying invested over time is going to lead to greater results than trying to cherry pick when to get in or get out. And dollar cost averaging, allows you to just set it and forget it, buy at systematic intervals. And for most people, it's as you're coming into money, you're putting it in.
Hmm.
You get paid every 2 weeks, every month. You put a portion of that paycheck into your investment. So just naturally throughout your career, your income forces you to dollar cost average and keep buying. And that time in the market is the biggest, most important variable out there. We've talked
Yeah.
before, Warren Buffett, the majority of his wealth has come after his 65th birthday. And that's not because like he turned into a better investor in his older age. No, it's simply the compounding of time working its magic. Um, you can our human brains don't do compound math very well. Like if you yeah, you've probably all heard some iteration of the, hey, if take a pond and put a lily pad on it, and the lily pads double, every day for 30 days, how many lily pads do you have at the end? Or if you take a penny and put it on the first square of a chessboard, and on the next square you put 2 pennies, on the next square you put 4 pennies. How many pennies do you have by the time you've reached the 64th square on the chessboard? And all of you, if you don't already know the answer, are going to guess a lower number than the actual number. It's like something
Like probably
insane.
dramatically lower.
It's like the actual result is, and I'm not making this up, it's like 184 quadrillion. Here, I'll Google this for you, which is great for audio. Um, how much do you have if you double a penny every day for,
64.
yeah. Um, Drum roll, please. Over 92 quintillion. So 1 cent, day 10. So on day one, you have 1 penny. Day 10, you have
I don't
five
even
dollars
know
and
what
twelve
number
cents.
quintillion is.
And
Where is
is
this
that
in the
five um commas? One, two, three, four. Yeah. So that'd be 5 commas in the number. So a million is 2 commas. A billion is 3 commas. A trillion is
four?
4 commas, and then a
Yeah, so
quintillion is, well,
it's
is there
fine.
a
So that makes sense.
quadrillion? Whatever. It's more money than is probably on Earth in aggregate. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
So that's wild. Yeah.
yeah, it's here 92 quintillion, 233 quadrillion, 700 trillion, 368 billion, 547 million, $758 and 8 cents.
If
Is
only we got a 100% return every day. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yep. So, but I mean, do that with 10% return multiplied over
Years,
50
not days.
years,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in Warren Buffett's case, he started investing when he was 11 years old. Now he's
Yeah.
95, I want to say. So you got a 80 plus year investment career. Um, time is the most important factor into that equation. It's not he picked the best stocks, and yeah, sure, he picked good companies. He's also, probably had some duds in the portfolio over the years.
I'm sure everyone has at some point. If you do investing at that level, there's no way that he hasn't. Yeah. Yep. I think that in general, it's a good idea to kind of take the guesswork out of it, but that doesn't mean that there's no work. So we're talking about like automatically investing 10% of your paycheck every month. You got to set it up. It doesn't just happen. And I mean, I think Corey and I probably both have clients where they're saving how much they should be saving, quote unquote, because we've kind of guided them like, hey, we need to save at least this much for your long-term goals, but they still have extra money and maybe it just is kind of building up in the side on a savings account. And so in order to avoid that, like if we don't need this money, ideally it's getting set aside and being invested kind of as quickly as you're earning it. So we don't necessarily have these big chunks of money that give us pause. Like if you're investing it every month, like that's just a better strategy. But that does require some thought. Like, how much is extra each month? How much can I afford to put into this brokerage account or investment account or whatever it is? And then you can also adjust that as needed. Like if your cash flow needs change, you can change that. But ideally, like as you have extra money, you are investing it right away so you don't end up with $200,000 of extra that you're now unsure of what to do with. And it feels like a bigger problem, like a very, very, very good problem, but a bigger problem, honestly, just to be like, what do I do with this?
Now, there are some scenarios where building up cash can make sense. Like if we're
Yeah,
saving for a big
for a
expense,
specific purpose.
like, hey, I want to buy a new house in a year and I'm going to need 200,000 for a down payment. I currently have 100,000 in savings. All right, over the next year, I need to try and accumulate an extra 100 grand or, buying a new car. Don't want to finance it. Going to pay cash. Whatever the expense is. We're doing a home renovation. Any of those big ticket items, plan ahead for that. There's also the case of where maybe putting a little thought into this is better than just blindly investing right away in my diversified index portfolio. Like, say you get
Hmm.
a big inheritance.
Hmm.
Well, let's sit down. Let's think. What are the goals and objectives for this money? Do we want
Hmm.
to accelerate our path towards retirement? Do we want to shore up the kids' college savings fund? Is there that vacation home we've always wanted? Like, do we want to buy that? Well, do we really want to buy that? Maybe let's go spend, 3 months in this location and see how we like it, or, whatever the scenario is. Maybe there are cases where we put a little bit of thought into the thing. Maybe we want a portion of this money to provide guaranteed income for ourselves in retirement. So maybe we explore some annuity options with that. So there's endless scenarios where pausing and thinking can make some
Hmm.
sense, but generally speaking, the less thought, the better. Put the money to work. Don't try to time the market. This isn't a market timing conversation. We're putting thought
Right.
into it, not because we're trying to pick what's the optimal price point or day or month to invest. It's all right. What's the strategy? What are the
The goals.
objectives? What are the goals? Let's
Yeah.
let's let's make sure we're, thinking this through before we develop a strategy to achieve those goals. But
Yep.
assuming you've got the goals outlined, you've got the strategy in place and you're just following through with the strategy, let's just like clockwork, boom, boom, boom,
Keep it
put it to
simple.
work. Yep.
Yep. With retirement plans, especially at work, there are some considerations to keep in mind. So we have some clients where it's like, okay, this is how much money we need per month. So we can do 10% into our 401k, but we really need the rest of our paycheck. And if that's the case, like you're kind of dollar cost averaging automatically. You're doing 10% of your paycheck into the market every paycheck until it maxes out, which is probably close to the end of the year. We're doing 10% or something like that, depending on your income. But we have some clients who really just don't need a big paycheck every month. Like their expenses are really, really manageable compared to their income. And for some of those clients, they like to and want to kind of accelerate that 401k or 403b, like retirement plan funding earlier in the year, like do a very large percentage, like 50 or
Front load it.
75%. Yeah, front load it because again, time in the market can be better than timing the market. So for those clients, I think it's really important to make sure you're reviewing everything in your like plan documents to make sure that that doesn't affect any matching contributions that you might get. So if you contribute 4% and then your employer matches 2%, then does that mean if you do 75% in your first paycheck, they do 2%? And then for the next couple paychecks, they also do 2%, but then you're missing out on the rest of your paychecks because you only contributed in January and February. So sometimes it's set up like that. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the employer is adjusting, knowing that you are contributing early, but you are contributing at least 4% of your income in total. So they'll make adjustments and they'll still do that 2% of your income. But that's a really important thing to clarify. It may not be something you can easily find in like your plan documents, but if you reach out to human resources, they can hopefully clarify for you and let you know. If not, you may need to go to like the plan provider directly. But it's important to know that because you don't want to miss out on free money. Like free money in the form of a 50% match is more important than getting money in the market earlier. Like that's going to be a bigger deal for you.
And I feel like with most
They kind
retirement
of figure it out.
plans,
Yeah.
if it's a safe harbor plan, like they have to shore it up before the tax deadline anyways. Like if they promised you this 3% match or whatever the number is, like they got to do that for all employees, whether they contributed they filled up the 401k in January or they spread it out throughout the year. They look at, all right, what's your W-2 salary for the year?
How
Once they
much
get
did
all
you
that
contribute?
W-2 data, what did everyone contribute? If it's a match, all right, let's make sure we're matching the appropriate dollar amount. So for most of you, it's a non-issue, but it doesn't hurt to clarify to make sure there isn't some like special provision in the plan if it's not your
Yep.
typical retirement
Yep. And I
plan.
have had it come up a handful of times, not a lot of times, but I think that it's worth making sure. Like we're not
For
missing out by
sure.
doing this.
Yeah. But yeah, and I mean, sure, if you got more money coming in than you know what to do with and you want to front load the retirement plan at work, more power to you. And then we invest in other things later in the year. I guess at the
Hmm.
end of the day, it's all getting invested one way or the other. But I guess if it's like, hey, I'm going to invest in the first half of the year and then rebuild my savings account or fund our vacation expenses in the back half of the year. Sure, statistically speaking, that would work in your favor over a long period of time. 3 out of 4 years, stock market ends the year higher than it started. So the sooner you can get that money in, statistically, the better. You'll get maybe a couple extra percentage, if I can speak, points of return, every year over using that formula, but not guaranteed, of course. There's going to be some
Hmm.
years where it goes down and you put it all in at a high point and then you'll want to kick yourself. But if we're just playing the odds, spread that out over 40 years, 30 of them, you're going to come out ahead doing that front loading strategy. So
Yep.
um, I feel like for most people, though, like the consistency of the paychecks is preferable
Hmm.
to the inconsistent, like, all right, I know the first quarter, I'm not pocketing much money because it's all going to my retirement plan. And
Hmm.
then I get extra money in the back half of the year. Like, I don't know. For most people, I feel like that is annoying and they'd rather have
Planning is a lot easier around a
either.
regular paycheck for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. So in general, like when we're thinking about approaching this, I think if you have extra money on a regular basis, invest on a regular basis just to take out the guesswork, then you're doing dollar cost averaging and you're investing sooner than later. You're kind of accomplishing both of those things at the same time, which is great. If you do get like a big chunk of money or you just happen to have like a big excess sum of money that you know you don't need in the short term and you know you want to invest, maybe approach dollar cost averaging if you're more risk averse and you're concerned about market volatility in general. Like, I don't know where we're at in the market cycle. Like, you never really do know. And then you can consider dollar cost averaging, but probably over a shorter period of time is a good idea. We don't want to wait too long to get money into the market. It also matters how much money we're talking about. So if you're talking about $30,000 and you already have $1 million invested, it's such a small portion of your overall savings that it's not going to move the needle a lot one way or the other. But if we're talking about, $150,000 and you only have $200,000 invested, like that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. That's a large portion of your overall wealth. And maybe we want to be a little bit more cautious and a little bit, and you feel a little more risk averse with that money. So again, I think, when we were talking about that scenario where you have $100,000 and you split it up $10,000 on the first day of the month for 10 months, like maybe we do weekly, like maybe we do it every Monday for 10 weeks and try to accelerate that dollar cost averaging and just get it into the market sooner, but still spread out investments a little bit. And then
Yeah.
if you're fairly aggressive, yeah, go ahead, Corey. What are
I was
your
gonna
thoughts?
say
Because
it's
I'm very curious.
no, it's a great point. The relatively speaking, like,
Hmm.
how much is this gonna potentially move the needle over the long run? Like
Yeah.
if you're 58 years old and you've got $10 million dollars and you're ready to retire and just got bought out from your share in the practice and you receive a $2 million, check, like, okay, sure, it's 20%, like you're already in a good spot. Like, it's a large number, but do we need to dollar cost average it? Or that's kind of back to the planning piece.
Hmm.
Do we just want to pad the stats here and stuff it in the account because we don't really need it? Or is there something else we want to do with the money? Um,
Hmm.
or hey, we've got 5 million, we want to get to 10 to retire. Um, we sold the business. Now we have another 5 million that came in from our business sale. Okay, now we're at 10, but that's half of our portfolio. Do we want to really invest all of that right away? Do we want to maybe spread it out over a little bit of time? Like, what are our thoughts?
Hmm.
Where's the market at? Like, et cetera, et cetera. Versus, yeah, you're 30 years old, you've got 10,000 in your 401k and you want a scratch it ticket and you just got $50,000, like that 50,000 isn't materially changing your long-term outlook on retirement. Sure, it might give you like an extra 500 grand by the time you're in your 60s, if you let it work and compound over time.
We're like 500 grand, who cares?
But well, I mean, but really,
Inflation
like
adjusted and all that.
for
Yeah.
yeah, inflation
Yeah,
adjusted
yeah.
500 grand 30 years from now is like the equivalent of,
Couple hundred maybe.
200 grand in today dollars.
Yeah.
And while yes, that's not insignificant for most Americans, that is a potentially life-changing sum of money. For most of you who are listening to this podcast, 30 years from now, you're going to probably need at least 5 million to feel comfortable and in a position to retire. Um, most of you, if you're in your 30s or 40s, you're going to retire on a number 10 million or more. Like, it sounds crazy, but it's probably true. Like, you will have what is that, an 8-figure portfolio by the time you're,
Hmm.
in your 60s or 70s. So an extra 500,000, I mean, sure, 5% difference, but it's probably not changing your ability to retire. If
Well, and honestly, when we're talking about that $50,000, we're not talking about 500,000 or zero. It's just like we may make some
yeah,
differences on the periphery of that $500,000 plus or minus 50
it
or
might be
whatever it
400 or
is.
600 by the time you're
Right.
actually there.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
So
it's
that's
not,
what we're talking about.
yeah, it's not like yeah, it's not going to be zero. If I
Hmm.
mean, it could, but then we don't have any money
Very
anywhere.
unlikely.
Yeah, every company has gone out of business, and we're in caves trading sticks for
Well,
stones at that point.
if you're stock picking, maybe you hit some new
Yeah,
things.
for sure. There's some possibilities there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, is this actually moving the needle in the grand scheme of things? Um, if so, all right, let's take some time, put some more thought into it. If not, like, I think the less thinking, the better, because
Yep.
the more we think about it, our investments, probably the more likely we're gonna make mistakes,
Hmm.
because that's just
Your
how it
emotions
is.
will absolutely cloud your decision making, period. I think, like, if you're trying to decide based on what's going on in the market, like how you feel about politics will matter, how you feel about, like business in general, how you feel about inflation, how you feel about like how much the grocery store costs, like everything will affect what you think about your investments. And they're not things that actually like that they may or may not actually be affecting the stock market because it's really hard to tell in any given period of time what the stock market will think is the most important and really what investors will think is the most important.
And you guys are all very smart individuals, like top of your
Yep.
class in high school, college, etc. Like some of the smartest people on this planet, but you individually are not collectively more knowledgeable than all the participants of the market in aggregate. Like, the markets are very efficient tools at pricing, and accounting for future cash flows of businesses. And sure, they get it wrong from time to time. That's why there's ups and downs. But it's a very, I don't think there's a more efficient tool out there than the aggregate knowledge of the global population when it comes to this stuff. So you're not smarter than the markets. Sure, you might, guess right a few times. Yeah, and you could have a string of luck, but the odds are against you of
Yeah.
outsmarting the markets consistently over time. So you're
Yeah.
probably better off just sticking with your diversified strategy and
And
putting
trying
the
to
money to
invest
work.
consistently.
Bingo.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. So try to take the guesswork out, decide on what works best for you. If you're dollar cost averaging, hopefully you're doing it as you have money and like, just kind of getting money in sooner than later. Big chunks of money need a little bit more consideration, but again, it depends on like what are we talking about here? How what percentage of your portfolio is it? How big of a chunk of money is this? All that kind of stuff. So it all like with planning, obviously everything is very nuanced. And I think that's the part where it's helpful just to spend some time thinking with yourself and your family about what your goals are and all that kind of stuff, because that's what it all comes back down to eventually. Like that's what should be determining your investment decisions, not market decision, like conditions and all that kind of stuff. All that.
Yep, yep.
Awesome. Thank you for listening, everyone.
We'll
We
see
love
you
to
next time.
ramble.